You know what's funny about intellectual property? I said, swirling my wine glass as the venture capitalist across from me leaned in. Everyone thinks it's about protecting innovation, but really, it's about power. And when Axiom's board called me just a patent manager last month, they forgot one crucial detail. I owned the keys to their entire kingdom, all $420 million of it. The VC's eyes widened. He knew exactly where this story was heading. My name is Cassandra Mitchell. For 11 years, I built and protected Axiom Biotech's patent portfolio from nothing into one of the most valuable assets in pharmaceutical tech. I was the quiet force behind our company's meteoric rise, the one who secured our exclusive rights to a revolutionary drug delivery system while juggling conference calls during my son's soccer games. Axiom had been my second home. I'd postponed vacations to file emergency applications, worked through my maternity leave to protect a breakthrough, and built relationships with patent offices across 3 continents. My husband James often joked that I was married to both him and the company's IP department. He wasn't entirely wrong. Everything changed when Harold Whitmore took over as CEO last spring. The board brought him in from a competitor with his MBA fresh son, Tyler, trailing behind him like an entitled shadow, contemptuous. Harold had the resume: Harvard Business School, successful exits at 2 biotech startups, but he had the personality of a spreadsheet sarcastic, cold, calculating, and utterly devoid of institutional knowledge about what made Axiom special. "We need to streamline operations," he announced during his first all-hands meeting. "Cut the fat, focus on core competencies." Corporate speak for prepare for bloodshed. I wasn't worried initially. Our patent portfolio was the company's crown jewel, the reason we commanded premium licensing fees and kept competitors at bay. My team of 4 had secured protection for technologies that generated 68% of company revenue. We were lean already. Essential. Or so I thought. 3 weeks after Harold's arrival, I was called to a strategic alignment meeting. I arrived 5 minutes early, portfolio analysis in hand, ready to walk the new leadership through our IP roadmap. Instead, I found Harold, Tyler, and Melissa from HR waiting with identical grim expressions. "Cassandra," Harold began without looking up from his laptop, "we're restructuring the IP department. Tyler will be taking over as Chief Innovation Officer, overseeing all intellectual property strategy." Tyler, 26 years old with an undergraduate business degree and 0 patent experience, smiled at me with practiced sympathy. "You'll report to Tyler moving forward," Harold continued. "He has some fresh ideas about how we can monetize our patent portfolio more aggressively." The room tilted slightly. "I'm sorry, but Tyler has no experience in patent law or biotech IP," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Our portfolio requires specialized knowledge of both pharmaceutical regulations and international patent frameworks." Harold finally looked up. "Tyler completed a 2-week executive course on IP strategy at Wharton. He understands the business angles, which is what matters to our shareholders." A 2-week course? Versus my law degree, specialized patent certification, and 11 years building the portfolio from scratch. "And your salary," Harold added, sliding a paper across the table, "will be adjusted to reflect your new role." A 40% reduction. My son's college fund, our mortgage refinancing plans, gone in an instant. "This is effective immediately," Melissa from HR added softly. "We'll need your master access credentials for the patent database before you leave today." That's when I realized they didn't see me as human, just a technical functionary to be sidelined, a woman who dedicated her prime years to building something they now wanted to control without understanding its true value. I handed over my temporary credentials with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. What Harold, Tyler, and Melissa didn't know was that I'd architected our patent management system myself, and while they were getting my standard access login, there were administrative backdoors only I knew about. As I walked to my car that evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Martin Chen, CEO of our biggest competitor. "Heard about the restructure. Let's have coffee," No strings attached. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, tomorrow, 8 a.m. The game had just begun. The next morning, I sat in my home office staring at my laptop screen, still in shock. My 7-year-old son Ethan poked his head in before school. "Mommy, why aren't you dressed for work?" I forced a smile. "I'm working from home today, buddy. Like during COVID?" His innocent question made my chest tighten. "Something like that. Have a good day at school, okay?" After James took Ethan to school, I canceled my meeting with Martin. It felt too reactive, too desperate. Instead, I spent the day updating my resume and scrolling through LinkedIn, watching congratulatory messages pour in under Tyler's announcement as Axiom's new Chief Innovation Officer. Former colleagues who knew better remained conspicuously silent. The following weeks were a special kind of corporate hell. Tyler scheduled daily knowledge transfer meetings where he'd interrupt my explanations with simpler ways to handle complex patent strategies. He referred to our breakthrough cancer drug delivery system, which I'd spent 3 years protecting across 42 countries, as that needle thing. During a presentation to investors, Tyler stumbled through explaining our IP strategy. When a sharp-eyed investor asked about our defensive patents in Asia, Tyler froze, then recovered with, "Cassandra can address the technical details. She handles the paperwork." Paperwork. 11 years of strategic legal architecture reduced to clerical work. At home, things weren't much better. Our financial cushion was evaporating. James suggested I look for another position, but specialized IP roles in biotech were rare in our city, and Ethan was settled in his school. Moving would mean uprooting everything. "Maybe it's time to consider a career change," James suggested gently one night. "And throw away 15 years of specialized education and experience?" I snapped, immediately regretting my tone. "I'm sorry, this is who I am." The final humiliation came during quarter-end reviews. Tyler presented his strategy for monetizing our secondary patents, a plan I'd drafted 6 months earlier and shared in a department meeting. "Brilliant approach, Tyler," Harold nodded approvingly. "This is exactly the fresh thinking we needed." I sat silently, watching my work being claimed by someone else. After the meeting, I retreated to the bathroom and did something I hadn't done in years. I cried at work, quietly, in a locked stall. That evening, I sat in my car in the parking garage, unable to start the engine. What if Tyler was right? What if I was just a technical functionary? Maybe I'd overvalued my contribution all these years? My phone buzzed with an email notification. Reflexively, I checked it. A message from Dr. Amara Singh, lead scientist on our most promising new drug platform. "Cassandra, Tyler is asking me to share our research data with Meridian Pharma as part of a strategic partnership. Isn't Meridian working on something similar? This feels wrong. He's using your master access credentials to pull files from the secure server." I froze. Meridian was developing a competing technology. Sharing our unpublished research data could invalidate future patent claims. Worse, Tyler was using my credentials. If anything went wrong, the audit trail would lead back to me. I opened my laptop right there in the parking garage and logged into the patent management system through my hidden administrator access. What I found made my blood run cold. Tyler had downloaded our entire portfolio strategy document, including our confidential filing schedule for the next 2 years. He'd accessed our most valuable trade secrets using my credentials. And he'd initiated document sharing with 3 competitor companies. Either he was catastrophically incompetent or deliberately sabotaging our IP protection. Either way, he was jeopardizing the company's entire future and setting me up to take the fall. That's when it hit me. If they thought I was replaceable, I'd show them what happens when someone who actually understands the value of what they've built decides to walk away, with a plan. I picked up my phone and dialed Martin Chen's number. "That coffee offer still good?" I asked when he answered. "For you, Cassandra? Always." Martin Chen chose a quiet cafe 10 miles from Axiom's headquarters. When I arrived, he was already seated in a corner booth, 2 coffees waiting. "I was surprised to get your call," he said, studying me carefully. "You've turned down my recruitment attempts 3 times over the years." "Things change," I replied, sliding into the booth, "but I'm not here about a job." For the next hour, I outlined what was happening at Axiom without revealing any confidential information. Martin listened intently, occasionally making notes. "Tyler's actions could tank Axiom's market position," he concluded. "But why come to me?" I leaned forward. "Because I need to understand my options before I make my next move." Martin smiled. "Options like the fact that your employment contract has a whistleblower clause that supersedes your non-compete if you report mismanagement of company assets?" I'd forgotten he used to practice law before entering biotech. "Exactly like that," I replied. The plan crystallized over the following week. I wasn't going to steal anything or break laws. I was going to use Axiom's own systems and Tyler's incompetence against them. First, I documented everything. I created a secure timeline of Tyler's actions using my administrator access to track his digital footprints through our patent management system. I noted every instance where he shared confidential information inappropriately or made decisions that jeopardized our IP protection. Second, I prepared a comprehensive analysis of our patent portfolio's true value, not just the $420 million in direct licensing revenue, but the additional $1.2 billion in market capitalization it protected by keeping competitors at bay. Third, I consulted an employment attorney who confirmed that my whistleblower protections were solid if I reported to the board rather than going public. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Tyler scheduled a board presentation to unveil his strategic patent monetization plan. He hadn't bothered to consult me or review the existing licensing agreements, many of which contained complex cross-licensing provisions I'd negotiated over years. The morning of the presentation, I arrived early and requested 5 minutes with the board before Tyler's presentation. Harold tried to object, but board chair Elizabeth Winters, who'd been with the company since before my time, overruled him. "The board will hear from both of you," she said firmly. When Tyler entered the boardroom, he faltered seeing me there. I smiled politely as he launched into his presentation, proposing to sell off non-essential patents to generate immediate cash flow. The patents he'd labeled non-essential were actually critical defensive patents that protected our core technology. Selling them would be like removing the moat around a castle. When he finished, Elizabeth turned to me. "Ms. Mitchell, your thoughts?" I connected my laptop to the projector. "I've prepared an analysis of what this plan would actually mean for Axiom." Slide by slide, I methodically dismantled Tyler's proposal, showing how it would expose our core patents to challenges and allow competitors to develop workarounds. I presented financial projections showing how his plan would generate $40 million in immediate revenue, but potentially cost $380 million in lost licensing opportunities and market position. Then came the bombshell. Additionally, I've documented 17 instances in the past month where Mr. Whitmore accessed confidential patent information using my credentials without authorization and shared proprietary data with competitors, including Meridian Pharma. The room went silent. Harold's face reddened. "That's absurd," Tyler sputtered. "I have proper access." "Then why use Cassandra's credentials?" Elizabeth asked sharply. "I displayed the access logs on screen. The system records every login and file access. Mr. Whitmore has been using my credentials since day one, which means either he doesn't have authorized access to these files, or he's deliberately creating an audit trail that would implicate me in any data breach." Board members exchanged alarmed glances. Harold stood up. "This is a simple misunderstanding." "Is it also a misunderstanding that Meridian filed a provisional patent last week that mirrors our confidential research?" I asked, displaying the public filing. Research that Tyler accessed using my credentials 3 days before their filing. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I think, Elizabeth said slowly, we need to continue this discussion in executive session. Mr. Whitmore, both Mr. Whitmores, please wait outside. The executive session lasted 3 hours. I sat in the waiting area watching Tyler pace nervously while Harold made heated phone calls in hushed tones. Neither spoke to me. When Elizabeth finally emerged, her expression was granite. "Cassandra, please join us again," she said. "Mr. Whitmore will speak with you shortly." Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Board members who had barely acknowledged me in previous meetings now watched me with newfound respect and concern. "We've reviewed your evidence," Elizabeth began. "The board has voted unanimously to place both Harold and Tyler Whitmore on administrative leave pending a full investigation." She slid a document across the table. "This is a temporary appointment naming you Acting Chief IP Officer with full authority over our patent portfolio. We need you to conduct an immediate audit to determine the extent of the damage." I glanced at the compensation figure, a 60% increase from my original salary before the demotion. "And if I decline?" I asked quietly. Elizabeth exchanged glances with the other board members. "Then we face a potential existential crisis. Several board members believe we should explore selling the company before this situation becomes public." I took a deep breath. "I'll need complete autonomy and direct board access." "Done," Elizabeth replied without hesitation. The next 2 weeks were a blur of forensic analysis and damage control. The full picture was worse than I'd initially thought. Tyler had shared confidential information with not just Meridian, but 2 other competitors. He'd also begun the process of abandoning several critical patents to reduce maintenance costs, patents that protected technologies generating over $80 million in annual revenue. I worked around the clock, bringing in outside counsel to help assess our legal position. My husband James took over most of the parenting duties, picking up Ethan from school and handling homework, while I rebuilt the protective walls around Axiom's intellectual property. The investigation revealed that Harold had orchestrated the whole scheme. Facing pressure to boost short-term profits, he'd planned to strip mine Axiom's patent assets for quick cash, then exit with a golden parachute before the long-term damage became apparent. Tyler was just his willing accomplice, eager to build his resume with an executive title. 3 weeks after the board meeting, Elizabeth called me to her office. "The board has made its decision," she said. "Harold and Tyler have been terminated for cause. We're pursuing legal action to recover their compensation." She paused. "We'd like to offer you the permanent position of Chief Innovation Officer, reporting directly to the board. The compensation package includes equity that would vest immediately." I smiled. "I have a counteroffer." I slid my proposal across the desk. A comprehensive restructuring of Axiom's IP department with enhanced protections, dedicated board oversight, and a new patent monetization strategy that would generate sustainable revenue without compromising our core protections. "I'll accept the role on these conditions," I said, "and I wanted in writing that no one person, including the CEO, can make unilateral decisions about our patent portfolio without department and board approval." Elizabeth reviewed the document, then looked up with newfound respect. "You've thought of everything." "That's literally my job," I replied. 6 months later, I sat across from Martin Chen again, this time in Axiom's conference room. After careful evaluation, we'd determined that a strategic partnership with his company made more sense than continuing as competitors in certain markets. "You could have destroyed us," I said as we finalized the agreement. "Why didn't you?" Martin smiled. "Because scorched earth benefits no one long term. I wanted a worthy partner, not a carcass to pick over." As we shook hands, my phone buzzed with a text from James. "Ethan scored the winning goal. We're celebrating with ice cream. Join us?" I smiled and replied, "On my way." That evening, as we sat in the ice cream shop listening to Ethan's excited play-by-play of his soccer game, James squeezed my hand. You know what I love most about how this all turned out? He asked. What's that? You didn't just get revenge, you rebuilt something better. I watched my son happily devour his ice cream sundae, thinking about the college fund that was now secure, the family vacation we'd finally take this summer, and the respect I'd earned not by playing politics, but by knowing my true value. The best revenge isn't just winning, I told James. It's creating a system where people like Harold and Tyler can never win again.